Cardano's price has fallen, and this is actually quite good for Cardano. In this video, I'm going to go through what has happened here with the price of ADA and why this is actually technically quite a good thing for Cardano to see another surge to the upside. As we get into this video, if you do find it useful and informative, hit the like button. I really do appreciate that. If you are new to the channel, then do subscribe, tap the bell and select all notifications, and you will not miss another update. Right, with that said, done out of the way, let's get into this technical analysis on ADA. So we're going to start things off with this weekly chart, guys. This is paired up with Tether, and we are using Binance as the data source if you wanted to replicate my chart here. There are, of course, these 5 impulse waves to the upside. Nothing moves up in straight lines, and these Elliott theory 5 impulse waves, and everything is kind of, pretty much going to plan. Is still in structure on this weekly chart as we head up towards some of these higher price targets for Cardano. Now, the Fibonacci retracement tool from the third wave high and the fourth wave low, this indicates about $7.22, but I think we're going to smash straight past those fib levels like we did with Solana. I think we've got some interesting targets up at $10, $15, $20, and $25. The fifth wave, I've kind of just nested it there at $10. I think this is a nice psychological barrier and something that we should be aiming to target for this run. Okay, now obviously we can see there are 2 main correction waves within our 5 impulse waves to the upside. You have a flat wave 2 and a sharp wave 4. Okay, they always are opposite. So if wave 2 was sharp, wave 4 would have been flat. And this is an important note because what we're going to talk about here is how there are waves within waves. Okay, so although we have seen a pretty significant pullback, right? I think it was about 30 something percent. Let me just check. 31% pullback here, right? And again, this is something that's quite normal and natural within the space. We can take a look at during our third impulse wave to the upside, there was another 28% drop just in the middle here, right? Let alone these couple at the top before we actually peaked up there. So the point that I'm trying to make with this is that there are waves within waves, and there is no exception to this 5th wave either. So what we'll do is we'll actually go ahead and grab our impulse waves, our Elliott impulse waves. If we actually take this from one here, this being wave 2, which is now sharp, would have a wave 3, a wave 4 that would be flat, and then a 5th wave potentially pushing us up higher, right? So even though we're talking about a 5th wave on this larger time scale, on the smaller time scales, there'll be even more waves, okay? So this is, again, a natural kind of thing that we would expect to see within our 5th wave, although it was unnatural by nature, as in Bitcoin had been kind of manipulated, had been pulled back, and as a result, the entire market kind of fell back with it. But this actually puts Cardano in a pretty interesting and, pretty good position to continue its growth to the upside during this 5th impulse wave to the upside. So right now, obviously on this weekly chart, everything is looking actually pretty decent. And we can see that the stochastic had a pullback in line with this. And again, this is something that we've seen with our third wave to the upside, where we saw natural kind of pullbacks in the middle, around here, around here, around here. And then obviously we peaked right at the top, but we actually started to lose momentum just around this area here, right? We can see that we're overbought and we pulled down into the oversold area once we bottomed out in wave 4. So the fact that we're still up here, this is pretty much early on in this area as we're pushing up into our 3rd wave, is the same thing as us pushing up into our 5th wave here. There's no difference between what happened with wave 3 and wave 5 just yet. They're pretty much identical in the patterns that are being formed. We obviously have natural pullbacks that you can see happening here. And again, our stochastic is pretty much in a reasonable same position as it was for our 3rd wave to the upside. So this is encouraging to say that we've obviously gained a pretty significant position from the bottom of wave 2 to the top of wave 5. It was 3,300%. Okay, and we are only talking about moving a few percentage points at this point. Let me just grab my range here. From the current position up to that $10 range is 297%. So we know that actually this is a pretty easy, relatively straightforward kind of move for Cardano to kind of complete this one. And again, for those people who do say that market capitalization is a barrier to price discovery, I think you need to do a bit more research on what market capitalization is and is not. Market capitalization is a simple calculation between the last sold price and the circulating supply. It is not a calculation of the amount of value in a project. It is not a calculation of the amount of liquidity. It is not a calculation of the amount of money that's actually flowed into a project. It is much simpler than that, guys. It is literally the very last sold price multiplied by the circulating supply. It's a notional idea of a value, but obviously as the price fluctuates with every transaction, obviously the market cap fluctuates with every single transaction. For example, there were people buying Cardano down here who have held Cardano all the way through. They didn't pay these prices of $2.50 for it. They paid the, less than 10 cent scenario for it. So obviously when market capitalization is calculated on the current price, it does not represent the price or the money that was actually flowing into the project down here. So it's important that we understand that, okay? Market capitalization is no barrier to price discovery. Instead, what you end up with is two things. You need to have a squeeze on the supply, so i.e. become the world's most decentralized network, have lots of people delegating and staking an out of circulation supply. And then obviously you have to have the demand, i.e. smart contracts come in, i.e. people start building on the ecosystem, i.e. you start having people migrating from an existing system over to the new ecosystem. This actually then drives demand for ADA, and as a result, the supply is already squeezed because it's delegated, it's out of circulation, and then there's a demand that comes in pushing the price higher. As the demand increases, higher and higher the price will go. So overall, everything is looking pretty good and pretty tidy, in line with our 5 impulse waves to the upside. There's nothing unusual about this. It is pretty much standard. This correction, although it was unfortunate circumstances with how it came about, was very much natural. We've seen it happen time and time before. Nothing here is any different to what we've seen previously. So let's jump down into our daily view. This is where things start to get a little bit more interesting. Okay, because obviously we had this nice push to the upside. Now, during this recovery push, okay, we've been talking about how we were overbought and we needed to see some kind of correction on our daily stochastic. Here we had a small pullback in the middle. This was a pretty interesting one that allowed us to then continue this growth to the upside. Now, actually, during this push, after this correction coming down here, we actually pushed up a little bit towards our first all-time high, and then we started to lose momentum, and we pulled right down into the oversold area, even though we actually wicked up just a little bit up into a new all-time high. Now we were actually down here at 3.1, or 3.3 points actually on the stochastic RSI. There's huge amounts of growth now to happen back on this daily stochastic RSI. And what we mean by this is when we take a look at during our fourth wave correction, when we were oversold down at the bottom here, we were able to utilize all of that space on the stochastic to go from here to here. Okay, so that's a huge push to the upside. Nice, good recovery, setting all-time highs. This pullback that we've seen puts us right back down into this oversold area, ready to take advantage of all of that space once again. So again, this actually is a pretty good indication that we've had a good recovery from a technical point of view. Yes, a little bit of damage to the price has occurred here, more than I would have liked to have seen. But with that being said, it now puts us in a very strong position now to continue this growth to the upside in a very significant way. And again, we are only days away from smart contract launches on the platform, seeing some projects also launched and things like that. So I think this is going to be an interesting time for Cardano. Being technically down here on the daily is a really strong thing to note. So obviously, we did break down a bit of a structure here, which was unfortunate. We come wicking down back into our area of the 618, 702 and 786 area. And again, this was short-lived, so there was a purchasing opportunity to be had down here, and then we started to see this growth. Now that's good. So overall, everything on this daily chart is looking pretty tidy. Now, when we actually go back into our hourly view, this is where we start to actually have broken down what was going on previously, right? We could see that there was a downward trend line, there was an upward trend line, and then we lost this trend altogether. And this is where we started to see this kind of fall back down. Now, what we have here is an interesting thing. We also basically had the bounce that took us from the oversold area to the overbought area on this hourly chart. Okay, let me just make this a little bit bigger so you guys can see. Okay, so we basically went from oversold to overbought. We then obviously had a pull back again, this low here, breaking us back down to the oversold area, pushing up again. Now there is resistance up here. Okay, so these are not quite higher highs that we're looking for on the previous areas here. But again, we had a small pullback in the middle. We started the surge back to the upside here, looking to go into the overbought area. Now the interesting thing here, other than the fact that this is a little bit concerning that we're getting rejected from this area here, we are setting higher lows on this journey. Okay, so if this continues and we continue to set these higher lows, then we should be looking to basically get that push back to the upside. On the short time frame here, we are probably going to be looking for some kind of short-term pullback, and again, like we've seen over this side just here and here. Okay, so if we look for these, again, we'll on that journey of a pullback, what we'll be looking for is to set another higher low that we had seen previously just here. Okay, so we'll look this time for a good support line. Now, support has been found previously on this resistance line of $2.47. So a pullback to $2.47 and then a surge to the upside to try to take out the $2.58 area could be something that we could see happen here on this hourly chart. At some point, we need to just completely drop out this momentum, take us back down into the oversold area, and then start to move back to the upside. I think at the moment, the markets are still a bit uncertain as to what is going on. Overall, technically, though, I think does look okay. And when we actually throw in the volumes here, we can see how the market has been shaken. A few people are a bit cautious over what is going on. And I also would be cautious a little bit at the moment as well as to whether or not we're going to see a sell the news scenario on the 12th. And again, we'll be mindful over that. But these are all short-term things. And long-term, I think we're going to start seeing Cardano do something very similar to what Solana has done, where once you start to see the transaction volumes coming, start to see those apps migrating over from Ethereum and starting to launch on the ecosystem, I think we're going to start to see a serious push to the upside with Cardano's ADA. But there might be a little bit of volatility before we get there. But structurally speaking, our weekly chart is incredibly bullish. Everything's looking very, very good for good price discovery. The same can be said for our daily. The only volatility that I'm currently seeing within the charts really come in at the hourly view. And again, these are really short-term kind of prospects. These are things that are happening within the next kind of 24 hours and things like that, and not something that's going to affect the overall long-term projection. And instead, what you'll find is this will be over relatively quickly. What you'll end up looking for is taking a look at the advice.io dashboard and seeing if there's any underlying issues with the Cardano ADA coin. And in the case of this artificial intelligence machine learning, it hasn't picked up a single issue for Cardano. Here we are still rated as an A2 rating. The fear and greed index has dropped down from an A1 to an A2 rating, meaning it is definitely greedy, but it's not extremely greedy, right? Moving averages are still doing incredibly well. The Sharpe ratio is still up there as an A2 rating, although it has come close to our 50-day average. We can see the peak and value demand is up there at a B2, so again, not too bad. We have profitability up at an A1 rating, the best it can be, and liquidity is definitely no issue either at an A2 rating. So overall, the artificial intelligence hasn't picked up any kind of issues here in the last 24 hours to really be overly concerned with ADA and whether or not it should be risky to consider it as something to be holding. So from this point of view, where an unbiased artificial intelligence perspective, it's good to see. We also then couple this data up with Glassnode. We like to take a look to see if there's any deposits on exchanges, and they've actually come down. So that definitely doesn't seem to be a problem when it comes to Bitcoin. So it doesn't look like Bitcoin's looking to have any kind of major drops on the market again. We'd like to also check the inflows here, make sure that there's nothing major going on with the inflows. Again, even the inflows were incredibly small in comparison to what we had seen previously when we saw other kind of market participants drop a Bitcoin on the market, right? I.e. what we saw in May. We're actually reasonably very low. And actually, if we go back over to the bull run, the previous bull run, we can see just how significantly higher some of these other inflows were and where we are right now. So it doesn't look like people with significant positions of Bitcoin are looking to load up exchanges and looking to drop it down on the market. So that's actually also a nice positive thing to say for many of the altcoins, including Cardano. So overall, I think this is a bit of a flash in the pan scenario where ultimately I think people were tricked into trying to buy $30 worth of Bitcoin on the back of the 𝗷𝗫𝗪 news, and actually there was a few bad actors who had geared up ready to dump on the market, so basically accumulate much bigger positions and buy up some of the fear that was up for sale. So what we saw here was a dump on the market, but an immediate bounce to the upside, right? And what we mean by that is basically sell large positions here, buy large positions here, and pushing the price right back to the upsides in the case of Bitcoin. So in the case of Cardano, something similar here. Basically, anyone with long positions potentially shorting were basically liquidated, and basically accumulation was actually had down at the other end. So again, nothing too kind of scary or anything like that to kind of note. Everything's on track. If we ever are concerned, we do zoom out and we pay attention to what is going on with our weekly chart, because the weekly chart is where we see the bigger structure and where things are heading. Guys, if you have found this video useful and informative, hit the like button. I really do appreciate that. If you are new to the channel, then do subscribe, tap tap the bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you will be kept up to date with absolutely everything that we do here. With this said, done, and out of the way, I hope everyone has a fantastic day, and I'll catch you in the next one.